the Music Tech weekly podcast, the Hop Pole Position. We talk about nerdy stuff, computer stuff, guitar-y stuff, general music production-y stuff. I'm your host, Adam Steele, and this is my co-host as ever, Mr. Liam Wright. That guy with the pointy finger. And we are coming to you with lots and lots of news topics this week. It's very, very busy. A lot has happened. And now the lights are changing. Roll the intro. Might actually go back and remix that intro music at some point this week. I keep listening to it every week and going, don't like that snare. Typical music producer rubbish. How have you been?
I listen to it every week and don't hear it because I don't get it on my side. So.
Oh yeah, because otherwise you'd just hear everything doubled up and that would be terrible.
Yeah. Indeed. How am I doing? I'm doing good. Tired, very busy, doing way too much stuff. But no, I'm good.
Sounds.
I just managed to throw a KFC down my throat, so I'm happy.
I'm hoping you kind of chewed it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Tomorrow when the bucket comes out, that's when we got issues. But yeah, I've had a very busy week. I've been doing a lot of editing. The actual long NAMM video is now ready to go. And more than anything, I've got a couple of things which I'll show to the camera. So I got this. This is a Marshall JCM800 Studio. So it's actually like the 20 watt version. So I can just about lift this and it's not ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I got that. I'm going to put that down. Those are not fake noises, by the way. That's actually really heavy. And for the one that's really, really heavy, I got myself a 5150.
Ooh.
Block letter 5150. I believe that's what it's... Oh, no, it's got the signature. But, yeah, those two amps between them is most of the studio amp tone that I've wanted for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I got this today, so I'm going to need to clean it and put new valves in it and give it a service. But, yeah... Oh, gee whiz. Oh.
So how does that compare to the PV head that used to be mine?
It's a lot more beefy, a lot more, it's basically, it's the original 6505 plus 112, yeah. Yeah, which, thing is, the original plus, the original 6505 is the original, which is actually also the 5150. They changed the name because the 5150 was Eddie Van Halen's brand, as it were. Mm-hmm. And when he left, they couldn't keep the brand, but they could keep the amp.
Right.
They just couldn't sell it under that name anymore, so they just came up with a different number.
Okay.
But yeah, then the plus was a little different, which was fine.
So that's the combo thing, isn't it? Because it was originally a combo until...
Well, yeah, the plus was like the Mark II version, but then there was a combo as well, which is the one that we've got, which is, I think, a 50 watt amp. Mm-hmm. But it's just a different design, and this one, yeah, you can throw these at people, and the people will be hurt more than the amp. But yeah, they in the studio right now, I actually have a 6505, which is the real full-size head. And I reckon it's exactly the same as this one, the 5150. There's a lot of debate on the internet about how different they are. Mm-hmm. So one video that I'm going to do is I got a brand new set of valves for the 6505. So they've been used for a grand total of 10 minutes. So I would call them new.
Doggo. Mm-hmm.
Hello, doggo. So tomorrow morning I'm going to take this into the studio and clean it properly, contact cleaner and all that kind of stuff. Leave it to dry. And then next week, I'm going to use the exact same set of valves and all the exact same amp settings on both amps to pretty much prove once and for all that they're the same amp.
Okay, cool.
Because that way, it kind of settles a debate that's raged on. Mm-hmm. Or doesn't. If it doesn't, why not? If they're different, why are they different? And that could be quite a fun question. And then when that's done, I can then sell one of the two on. And happy days.
Cool.
But yeah.
I like it.
It's going to be a cool video, that one. Proper guitar nerdery. I've been through a big drum nerd phase recently, so it's time to change up and be a guitar nerd for a while. Yes. Tonight, by the way, I am drinking cherry rum with lilt, which is a really nice combination. You can get ting in most of the world, which is kind of like a grapefruit juice. Mm-hmm. Yep. Grapefruit soda with cherry rum. The two together are just wonderful. So if you are of legal drinking age, feel free to drink along with us. Looks like Liam's drinking coffee again at 8 o'clock in the evening.
It's nettle and peppermint tea.
Ah, that stuff that you don't want to touch as a kid. Suddenly you're drinking it.
Yeah. You just drink it rather than poke it.
Just don't rub it on you.
Yeah, don't open the tea bag.
Might sting.
Yep.
Yes, quite. So, yeah, lots and lots and lots has happened this week. Mm-hmm. Oh, one thing that I haven't actually got as a news article, but literally just dropped about an hour ago, as somebody in the chat just said, the new Slate Infinity EQ just dropped.
Okay.
I have downloaded it. I've not had time to test it yet. Apparently, it's very, very nice. It's all fully touchscreen compatible and all that kind of clever stuff, which is what they've been working on, so that it's working with their whole Raven system, which people think I have because I have a big flat screen TV in the middle of the setup, but I don't. But I've always been quick with a mouse, so I'm going to stick with what I know. I mean, at some point in the future, if someone said, "Hey, do you want to try this?" I'd probably be like, "Okay," but yeah, no, I've always been faster with a mouse. For years, I had like MIDI faders and all that kind of stuff, and I found it always slowed me down. So yeah, in the end, I just kind of went back to using a mouse. It works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, without further ado, I will mention that we're going to do the news segment now. For anyone who's not watched the show before, hit the like button. That really does help us on YouTube, especially if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify. Obviously, that doesn't help. But thank you for listening. Thank you for your ears. But yeah, the like button really helps us. If you really like the podcast and the other videos we do, consider helping us out on Patreon, because that helps us to do more videos like the 51, 50, 65, 05 thing, because to be able to get the capital to do crazy stuff like that, it really helps us to make those kind of things possible. And it does. And the last order of business before we talk about the news is that after we talk about this week's news, we will be covering questions from the audience. So if you've got anything like techie questions, anything that's about, recent events, or even not about recent events, if it's a broader music production question, have a think now about the best way to word a question, and keep that for probably 20-30 minutes from now. So, without further ado, the news!
The news!
I do have to change that fade to our custom stinger. New machine. You've got a new machine as well, haven't you?
I do.
We're both on laptops now.
And
it's
quite strange.
And we both have more powerful machines.
Yeah, I was just showing Adam. I've got my new. I'm now running off a laptop, and then my old monster PC is now in the corner over there. And it's bizarre that thing is almost twice as powerful as that thing.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, it sounds like it's taking off like quite a lot as a result. But
yeah.
That's so it doesn't explode, so it's fine.
I found if I change mine to passive fan mode in the power configuration, then much more often it doesn't sound like a jet plane.
To passive fan mode?
Yeah, so it prefers then not to use the fans unless it has to, rather than automatically just kicking them on all the time. It does mean that it'll run a little warmer, but when it needs the fans, it does use them.
Yeah, so because it's a 3XS system, it's come with like 3XS's like fan monitoring programs. And
right, okay. Yeah, mine doesn't have that.
Yeah, I did tweak them slightly.
Right. Okay. It's probably more sophisticated than the typical Windows stuff then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, what temperature should your CPU run at?
I'd say 70 was fine. I mean, 80 is also fine.
Yeah, so it's running at 70.
Oh, there you go. Hey.
The GPU's running at 60.
That's more than fine. NVIDIA, on their desktop graphics card, let alone mobile, have a design now where they get to 83 degrees Celsius. And then from there, the fans then go crazy to keep it at that temperature. And
my setup here is set to go to 100% by 80. So do you reckon
Right.
I could pull that down a bit then?
Yeah, well, like I said, 83 is probably a good target. But the way that works, especially with NVIDIA graphics cards, is if the fans then aren't doing enough, even when they're on absolute full whack, it then starts to take the boost clock down a little bit. So 83 degrees, it generally doesn't go over that, but your performance tends to suffer, where it used to be that the temperatures went out of control. Now it's just that the performance just takes a few frames a second hit.
So what temperature do you reckon my CPU should go to 100?
100% fans, probably about 85, 90 degrees.
Okay, so that could come up a bit then as well. I could explodes and blaming you.
Yeah. Well, if your fans are at 100% at that point, then they're doing all they can.
At the moment, it's at like it was like 80 or something.
Yeah.
And it's about how they clock up as well. I'm going to try that and see what happens. My fan's currently at 82% speed for my CPU anyway, so...
Oh, right, so it's already pretty high.
Yeah, well, it's not really doing much either.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm going to turn the heat back on timer because we're all sweating to death. There we go. Okay, so, the actual news.
Oh, back to the news, yes. Indeed.
Yes, back to the news.
Well, it was techie stuff, it's all relevant.
Yeah, and it was technically news because it's all new to us.
Mm-hmm.
So, TC Electronics, famous for originally a lot of their stuff like the delay units, but more recently, all the pedals that have this thing called tone print have made a new pedal. And it's a very interesting new pedal. So, the tone print pedals, I don't know if you know anything about the tone print stuff.
I do not. No.
So, the tone print, let's say you had like a delay pedal, and it'd probably have a switch on it that's like sound type number 1, sound type number 2, and tone print. And tone print was like a USB connection. So you could load a completely custom kind of sound into that pedal. Mm-hmm. So you could have really, really detailed changes that you did off a laptop or that kind of thing, and then save that to the pedal. Mm-hmm. But the way that it worked, like the delay pedals, you could only load up delay tone prints. The distortion pedals, you could only upload distortion tone prints, that kind of thing, which meant that they didn't then cannibalize the rest of the market. So you still had to buy one of these, one of that, one of everything. So now TC have completely changed, and this is very shortly after the departure of their like rock star designer, a guy called Tor. I very briefly said hello to at NAMM for like 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. The really, really tall guy with the long hair. He now works for Universal Audio, but yes, now that he's not at TC, they have made the decision to make this pedal called the Plethora. Okay. And the Plethora, it seems, has all of the tone prints available to it. So it's a proper like multi-effects pedal.
Right. Okay.
So you can load 5 pedals at once on this thing. And so if you want it to be a delay or a tremolo or a distortion or whatever, you just assign them to different slots, as it were. Mm-hmm. And the way they've designed it, each one's got a pedal to turn it on and off. But also they've got one knob above each one, so you can assign one parameter for each. So during performance, you can change that, like it might be amount of distortion on a delay or whatever. Mm-hmm. You get to choose what that is, and of course, if you want to do more detailed editing, you'd have to do that on USB. But this is really, really interesting to me that you can have loads of different virtual pedal boards and you can just change them on a whim. Which means that there's really no need for you to buy any of the separate TC Electronics pedals now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these aren't cheap. Their price was $399 for one of these.
Okay.
But considering the price of each separate TC pedal was probably around $100, or if not a little more, that does seem to be largely cannibalizing a lot of their own market now.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And they've designed it in a clever way that it's stereo in, stereo out.
Okay.
And it's got an effects loop in the middle, so you can have like distortion pedals. Then it'll send a cable to your amp. Then you can get the rest of the effects to go in the clean bit, so it doesn't get mushed up by distortion. So they've really thought about this. But that does mean that, yeah, I reckon this could be really important in changing the game, because now like Line 6 did this years ago with their M13 and M9. But Line 6 weren't making tons and tons and tons of money off the separate effects pedals, as far as I'm aware. They were known for the pod, and they did have some pretty cool separate pedals, like the Line 6 DL4 delay is kind of legendary now, but the rest of the pedals from that range, not so much. But yeah, TC Electronics' own separate tone print pedals have been really highly regarded. Now, I don't know if you get every single possibility of a tone print with this, or whether you've got to pay for additional upgrades, or I don't know how that business model is going to work. But yeah, I also find it interesting that this pedal is called the Plethora X5. They've been very specific to actually include the number of effects you can run at once, which tells me, from a business perspective, they're probably going to have one come out later down the road that's got more, like an X8 or an X10, or this is probably going to be a range, which means that some people are probably going to hold off on purchase, see how it goes, see how the reviews are, and then maybe buy the bigger one. But I mean, hell,
yeah,
I'm considering buying one, because if you had this as a studio tool, I could then have pretty much every pedal that you could conceive going into the amps, the real amps that I've got. And arguably none of it's virtual. Yeah.
I like the way you think that, man.
I mean, I wouldn't go and buy one straight away, because $399 is quite a lot of money, but a few years down the road, when you find them on second hand for probably $200, scoop one up. Yeah.
Why not?
Why not, indeed. So, let's move from that one to an interesting lawsuit that's probably going to die as soon as it starts, which is Gibson are now going after Keisel guitars. Keisel, formerly Carvin, are a company run by the Keisel family in America. They're really like hot news right now. They do a lot of custom builds. A lot of YouTube guitarists are using like Stevie T, people like that. And Keisel have decided to start making a flying V called the Ultra V, which is a little bit like a Gibson Flying V, but if you look really closely at the details, it's actually quite significantly different. But oh no, tell a lie. So Keisel have actually been doing their Flying V since 1986, they say, which makes sense. They've been making guitars for a long, long time, and Gibson apparently only fulfilled their trademark in 1995. So yeah, Gibson really don't have a leg to stand on, even despite the fact that Gibson made Flying Vs in the 50s.
They could end up having to pay these guys
the
license to use it. This happened.
I mean, that would be the strangest thing. I imagine it's going to dissolve as soon as it even starts, because on Keisel's Instagram channel, Jeff Keisel, who is the vice president of the company, he's the younger member of the family, but he's the mouthpiece, he's the voice, he's kind of the modern day genius behind Keisel, because Keisel Senior, he's still there, but he is more of a traditionalist, whereas Jeff Kiesel's the younger one who works with all these up-and-coming bands. He's the cool dude.
Right.
He's literally like a drag strip racer. He's like cool incarnate. And so he's on Instagram already. He does like live Facebook videos every day. Stuff like that. Yeah, he's a real personality. Just trying to destroy everything. They had a cease and desist letter from Gibson, and so he went straight on Instagram and was like, no. So he was, he says he was 7 years old when his dad came out with the Ultra V. So, yeah, no.
Do you know how much those Gemini light panels are?
That
sheet.
No, but I'm going to take a stab at $1,500.
$4,000 each.
Wow. That's a lot of money, but
yeah, we've got a video shoot on Monday. I'm sourcing some kit out for, and Adam's like, yeah, let's get some of these bi-panel lights, and they came back with quite a high price rate for the day. I was like, should we just buy some? No.
No. Right. Okay. Well, maybe we don't need 2x1s. I mean,
yeah, maybe have a look later on.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting them to be that high. I mean, LED lights are expensive, but that's a lot of expensive.
Anyway, so.
Oh. Dog is itchy.
Yeah.
I can see the full camera on my screen, so I can see Rogue, the dog, in the background, just scratching.
Yeah. She's scratching, and the chair's banging against my drinks cabinet behind, which is what the noise is.
Yeah, I'm just moving around to drink my rum and banging my knee on the desk, because I'm an idiot. But yeah, that was that news. Moving on.
Yeah, more Gibson failing.
Yes, quite. So another piece of news this week. There's an amp company called Omega Amp Works, and they're small. Everything's hand built. I found out very recently that the guy who runs Omega Amp Works is actually the guitar tech for Mick from Slipknot.
All right.
And Mick Thompson from Slipknot is an absolute gear nerd. He doesn't use things unless they are the best of the best. I mean, even if it's a favour for a friend, he wouldn't. He's quite famous for being an amp nerd. Like, he was essentially sponsored by Rivera and had his own signature amp for many, many years. And then he actually preferred a Mesa John Petrucci signature, so he took a Mesa John Petrucci on tour for an entire tour just because he liked it better, despite the fact he had his own signature amp.
Okay.
Yeah, he's that kind of guy. So he's using these Omega amps, so they must be good. And knurled DSP have just come out with their model of their flagship amp, the Granophire. And I've heard a couple of demos, and my God, it sounds incredible. And the real one's well over $3,000, but the knurled DSP is $99. $110. Sorry, there's a little more, but yeah, knurled DSP are absolutely killing it in the amp sim world right now. Their amp models just sound so good. It's getting really, really, really good. I'm just gonna quickly interject myself here to stick an extra piece of news in. There we go. So, Get Good Drums, I mean, the name's a bit weird now, Get Good Drums, have just released the Zilla edition of their studio cabs, which I'm a big fan of Zilla and just wanted to mention it because Paul from Zilla is a friend of mine. And it's something that I know they've been working on for a long time. And it's a plug-in only as far as I know, so it needs to be in a computer plug-in context. But it's kind of like a click button setup, so you get to choose from their cabs and then choose the speakers and choose the microphone. Which, for someone like me, not only do they sound cool, but it means that when I've got the right combination, I can then phone up Paul from Zilla and be like, "Hi, Paul, can you build me one of these in this exact setup that I've made in your thing?" Yeah, I like how it sounds. Please make me one, thanks. But yeah, a couple of years ago, I started making all the Zilla cabs for Two notes. Shameless plug. I make those. I think they sound great. I mean, of course I would, but genuinely, I think they do. And I wanted to use the official Zilla name. And loyalty is quite an interesting thing, because Paul said to me, really sorry, but just before you phoned me, I agreed with the Get Good guys that we'd do something together. And I was like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But I had Paul's blessing to go ahead and do what I was going to do. But they'd got there in terms of the name. But for a couple of years now, I was like, well, is that ever going to come out? And here it is. So, yes, I genuinely hope the Zilla name gets more and more traction, and they do better and better, because they make really, really good stuff.
They do make good stuff, indeed.
Yes. I'm still at some point planning this year to go down to the new Zilla factory, because they've just moved to a bigger and better factory, and really spend some time doing a proper piece comparing some of their gear, because they've got a YouTube channel that started to grow a little bit. And yeah, it's doing really well, and they seem to do quite a few things the same way that I do. Yeah, how about that? But yeah, from what Paul was saying, if you Google Zilla cab demos, it's still my videos that come up at the top. So there you go. So yeah, moving on from that. Hans Zimmer is releasing. He's doing the score for the new Bond film.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's definitely a first. So I'm really looking forward to this. So I didn't know this, but yeah. So Hans Zimmer has made the new theme for the entire score for the Bond film, including the No Time to Die theme tune with Billie Eilish and Phineas, and Johnny Marr apparently was on stage with them at the Brit Awards as well. So yeah, it's going to be like Inception but Bond. So
Inception?
Yeah. So I'm going to be slightly disappointed if at some point during this Bond film we don't get a big and then some really repetitive piano piece like
I think it's likely.
I hope it's likely, because I really like that kind of stuff. But yeah, the soundtrack is due to release in 5 weeks. I think the film must be coming out around that same time then. Yeah. So yeah, Zimmer. Boing. That's going to be awesome. Less awesome, EU artists may require a visa to perform in the UK from next year.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't like using the word, but Brexit. Blah. It's already.
What does this article actually say though before you get into it? Because
let's have a look. The Home Office has announced, apparently, that artists will require visas to perform in the UK. Let's have a look. There's a report from Politico, apparently, that the EU artists planning on working in the UK for more than 3 months. Hang on. Well, yeah, usually artists planning working in the UK come here for a week on tour and then they leave again.
Yeah, in which case they wouldn't need one.
Yeah. But yeah, yeah, unless you were here for 3 months, in which case, yeah.
Quite a big tour, yeah.
Yeah, apparently the new European has been told by the Home Office that artists will continue to enter the UK under the Innovator route, and will in due course be able to benefit from the proposed unsponsored route. Something.
Yeah, it's very easy to write about Brexit and very clickbaity headlines. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We don't get into politics here. It's just too easy to clickbait articles on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I try not to dwell on this kind of stuff, but I just wanted to mention it because it's relevant to our industry. But even so,
possibly may be relevant. It's one of those things to keep your eye on rather than it being like, yeah. If it says Home Office announced, then okay, that's interesting. But
yeah,
like that part of it's probably worth maybe reading the Politico report rather than the actual article here.
Yes.
Like if people are interested in it.
Let's not do that right now, because that could get real deep, real quick.
Yeah.
So, sad news this week that Andrew Weatherall has passed away. And my first question was, who's Andrew Weatherall? And it turns out he is a man who had a very big impact on the UK indie and dance scenes in the 90s and 2000s. Do you know the track Loaded by Primal Scream?
Probably.
Yeah, it's the one that starts with that Marlon Brando quote, we want to be free, we want to get loaded. He did pretty much all of that. And then so Primal Scream invited him to basically make the entire Screamadelica album. So he pretty much defined basically indie that had dance remixes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he used to work with Paul Oakenfold a lot. He was introduced to DJing by Danny Rampling. This guy was a giant on the remix and DJ scenes. He did the remix of New Order's World in Motion. So yeah, he's pretty big.
Yeah, well, sad.
Yes.
Not too aware of it myself, but there's lots of people that make lots of other people happy that we can't all be aware of all of them.
Yeah, but especially in terms of production, his production work on Screamadelica by Primal Scream was the kind of thing that NME still talk about in, hallowed tones. So yeah, it's a shame we've lost another good man. So, from sad news to something a little more light-hearted, Arturia have now released a plugin bundle called the FX Collection. Now, this caught me off guard a little bit, because if you buy something like the Arturia Audio Fuse 8 Pre, the top of the range one, I believe this comes with it. So I've already been playing with all of these plugins for the past few months, and they are really, really good. So that's part of my review, which is dropping on Sunday of the Audio Fuse 8 Pre. Tomorrow I'm dropping the video about my new laptop, which is what we were talking about earlier. And so yes, it turns out that all those effects, delays, preamp emulations, filters, they are being released as their own collection, so you don't actually have to buy the hardwares to get them. And so they've got like physical modeling technology and true analog emulation, all that kind of stuff. They're code names for their own coding styles. But I have to say, I used all these while we were out at NAMM, because I didn't have the methods to use any other plugins, and I was very, very happy with them. So yeah, when I got back, I didn't take any of those plugins off what I'd done. I kept it all.
Okay.
So I'll probably be using some of their stuff more. They've got an EMT 140 reverb, which is my favourite plate reverb. The real plate reverbs are the ones that I've talked about before. They're about the size of a room and about 300 kilos, 600 pounds, and they sound amazing. They basically sound like Motown. So that's coming out.
Nice.
So check that out. That is going to be introductory price of $299, which for what they are is reasonable, maybe a little higher than I would have expected. But yeah, if you spend more than that and get the Audio Fuse 8 Pre, they come with it. So that's what I did.
Would you pay that instead of a Slate subscription?
No. Hands down, that's nothing against Arturia. I think the Slate stuff is, for what the money I've paid for it since, and will continue to do so, is top of the tree right now. This comes very close second, but no, I'm a Slate boy right now. Unless someone comes up with something that can beat it. And someone probably will eventually. Then, yeah, until then, yes, Slate is the one for me. Now, moving on. Marshall have made some new noise-cancelling headphones, which amused me. that have Google Assistant built in. So Marshall masters of very, very loud noises and very, very quiet noises. So yeah, Bluetooth wireless headphones called the Monitor 2 ANC. They look big and chunky. And they are €299, $319. So they're not cheap. But yeah, they've got Google Assistant, so your Marshall headphones are constantly listening to you.
That just sounds weird.
Yeah, I know. It's a little bit strange. I mean, for that kind of money, I could get the Boss Wazza Air headphones, which do like amp emulation in the headphones. And they actually put the amp like in front of you, and as you move your head, it tracks. Yeah. So I think I'd probably go for the Wazza Airs over this. I mean, unless it can sound like a JCM800 without any extra cables or anything. Yeah, better be offering me something good for that kind of money.
Strange. I don't know. Putting Google Assistant in everything these days, it seems a bit weird.
It does. So from hardware that is causing some amount of doom to software that is going to cause me much ire and doom. Now you can finally upload music to SoundCloud from your phone.
Okay.
How much awful music are we going to hear on SoundCloud from now?
I don't know. SoundCloud isn't really my world. It's not my sort of music.
It's not been my world for a long time, but I keep tabs on it just because it's part of the conversation for mixing and mastering and sound quality and all that kind of stuff. I don't use it regularly, but yeah, it's not the best for sound quality already. But now this means that instead of you having to go to a studio or have your friend's bedroom studio and then upload to SoundCloud from there, you can just have a track, rap over it in your bedroom on your phone, and then upload it off your phone. Yeah, I'm not sure how useful this is going to be. Or at least how productive this is going to be, I should say.
I'm sure it'll be great for people that use it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Surely, so if you're recording onto your iPad Pro,
yeah,
which is a completely legitimate way of recording music, then you can upload it straight to SoundCloud from there.
You know what? That actually, you've got a point there. I've got a regular client who asks me to upload stuff to YouTube for them because they work entirely on an iPad. I mean, sorry, to SoundCloud. So now I can say, well, now you can do it yourself.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, okay. Alright, fair enough. I'm getting email after email after email here. They can all go away because we're in the middle of a podcast. I thought the guy was going to drop off this 5150 in the middle of the podcast. I was quite relieved when he turned up a little bit early. Yeah, I'm going to leave that news article to the end because that's and finally, Waves have launched an affordable plugin subscription, finally.
Ooh,
starting at $6.99 a month.
Okay.
Here's the kicker. The ones that they're giving you for that price are crap. So for $6.99 a month, you can get the silver bundle, which I have seen on sales for $49. The gold bundle you can get for $9.99 a month, which I've seen on sale for $80. You can get the $19.99 a month for the platinum bundle, which I've definitely seen going for $199 for the full thing. And apparently, if you sign up to gold or platinum, you have the option of becoming a custom 5-pack subscriber. So for an additional $8 a month, you can choose another 5 plugins from the Waves catalogue. But only only from a selection that they give you. You can't just pick any 5. Yeah, I get the feeling they're still not getting this thing about subscriptions. They're still trying to grasp at straws because people are giving the feedback it's too expensive. So they're going, okay, well, let's give them something cheaper.
Yeah.
But they're not lowering the price. They're just giving you less for less. That's not a good sales tactic.
No. So close. Self-aware wolves.
Yet so far. I use 2 Waves plugins that are in the Platinum bundle, and I bought them both for about $25 each on sale. And that's it. I'm done. So, like, and that's not because the others aren't good, but because, like, some of the ones in the gold bundle are like the EQ that every DAW's got one inbuilt that's just as good. Or, like, the limiter that every DAW's got one that's built in that's just as good these days. Or, you know, that all the really good Wave stuff isn't in these bundles that have been around for 10 years or more. And so, yeah, it's just like, hey, you want this old stuff for some money? How can they charge more than the Slate bundle for a set of plugins where half of them are 10 years old or more?
They just don't get it.
Not quite. Like you said, so close.
Yeah.
Yet so far.
They tried.
Now, here's one that I thought was interesting. A company called Clevgrand, this is one for our synth nuts, just dropped a free modular audio environment where you can build your own effects. So, if you've got an idea in your head for, I want an effect to do exactly this weird thing that nobody's ever done, but I don't want to start coding, well, good news. They've made a thing called Cress, which is a modular audio environment. Seems a little bit like, what's it called? Reactor by Native Instruments, where you go from this module to that module and then back to this module in whatever order you see fit to make your own effects. And it's free. And that's really interesting to me because that means that if you're someone who's got a lot of time and either wants to learn about how to do like a DSP processing, which is very much is the future of audio, or if you already know how to do this kind of stuff but you don't really fancy coding a lot, you can drop things in and go, well, this goes here, that goes here. And yeah, I think it's really impressive that they come out with this and gone, you know what, just have it. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's more like it.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good price. Considering it doesn't actually come with any effects, really. Apparently, it comes with the building blocks to make your own effects. I think it's really interesting because there are companies like there's the company that makes Max MSP, if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah.
They're called Cycling 74. 74. Let's see, Cycling 74. If I was to buy Max, it's just called Max now. Is there a wait? Okay, it's free for 80 days. Yeah, but how much is it then? Pricing? Why no pricing? I want to know what our price. Shop. Yeah, so Max MSP, well, Max is $399 or $99 a year. And yeah, this one is free. I mean, they're not the same thing. I'm not suggesting they are. But it's just interesting that the closest rival I can think of is that, or there's Reactor, which is a good couple of $100. So it's a very, very powerful tool for you to get going and not worry about being able to afford it. Just go. I think creativity like this should definitely be encouraged.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. If my daughter becomes 5 years old and I give her this, we're going to end up with a maximum nerd very quickly. She'll be like, what did you do today, Ivy? Oh, right, okay. And last but not least, Uli Behringer.
Hey!
Yes, that's why I left it till last.
Behringer.
So, there's been a lot of heat and a lot of hate on Behringer recently for copying designs and cloning stuff. And so Mr. Behringer himself, actually I believe it's Dr. Behringer, has taken to social media to defend the company's vision. Apparently they considers it they have two obligations: to relentlessly deliver what customers desire and to observe the law.
Right.
So, yeah, from what he said, and there's quite a lot here, but yeah, let's have a look. Yeah, so that was the key sentence. He said, "We always respect that people may have different opinions about what we should and shouldn't do. However, that's not an area we will ever engage in. Technology is free for everyone to use unless it's protected. That's exactly the reason why the law is designed the way it is, so it encourages competition, all for the benefit of you, the customers, and for society to progress." Okay, it's a bit of a broad political statement, I guess, but sure.
Yeah.
If he makes a Behringer iPhone, then I'll worry. We also understand that we're controversial, and we're perfectly fine with it as we continue to relentlessly push the envelope, whilst also challenging our competitors to deliver better quality and lower prices. Oof. So he says, "Recently we see more and more competitors join us in our mission, and we welcome everyone who believes in our vision. We're happy to collaborate with and also acquire businesses." So this is generally, I think, a shout out is like, well, we'll pay you a bit to make your product, or we'll just buy you. That's a mission statement if ever I heard one. Yeah. So if you're going to complain that we're making you stuff, we'll just own you. Yes. We call it customer obsession. That's why our team and I are here and listen to our customers. Yes. So I just thought that was really interesting that Mr. Behringer has stepped up to go, "Excuse me, we're going to do what..." No, yeah, we're going to do what we want. And good on him, I say. I mean, as long as he's not obviously doing any trademarks any harm, then yeah.
Yeah, from what I'd seen was that he was taking advantage of situations where that wasn't the case.
Yes. Or at least maybe buying the rights to things and then going, right, well, we've got the rights now, let's make a squillion of them. Yeah. Cheaper than you could ever make them, and possibly better because they own their own factories.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the bit that a lot of people miss about Behringer, is that years ago they were doing cheap Chinese stuff with cheap Chinese designs inside, because business-wise that was their only option. Then they got a lot of money together and literally built their own factories. And that's something that very few other companies are doing, and I think that has really been their industry strength, is they've cut the middleman out, which means that they can either make the prices low or make the margin high. Or a bit of both.
Yeah.
And the knock-on effect of that is that then, because they've got money in the pot and the other companies don't, they'll be like, they'll look at their competitor and go, "Hey, you're not doing so good. We've got some spare cash. Why don't we buy you?" And I bet a lot of them have gone, "You know what, we're all right." But a few of them have gone, "Yes, please." Like TC Electronics said yes. Clark Technic said yes. Midas said yes.
Depends where you're at as a business and what your vision is.
Yeah.
If you can sell what you've got and you've got another idea to do something else, it doesn't stop you from living up to your dreams, sort of thing.
Yeah. That's it. And for some of these companies, I wouldn't mind betting that especially now that Behringer own a lot more companies, it's become the Music Tribe Group or whatever it is. They're probably looking at these other companies and going, "We could do well to be associated with these other companies." Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Imagine being a majority shareholder in a small to middle-sized company, and then a big company goes, "We'll give you lots of money and then make you famous again."
Yeah.
You're, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, salute Mr. Behringer. He's slightly mad businessman, but yeah, he's absolutely winning there.
Definitely slightly mad, but yeah.
Yeah, he's winning more than Charlie Sheen right now. So, any questions from the audience?
From the chat?
Yes, now's a good time to get them in. Before we finish our stream, and then I'll go back to scripting, because tomorrow's going to be a relatively busy day for me.
Lots of filming?
Lots of filming. And then packing up the kit, because very shortly we will then be filming externally for another client. So, yarp. Yeah, there's a lot to do and a lot to get through. So tomorrow I'll be finishing off the filming for the Howard Benson plugin. I've now said that I'll do a video for the people who make Gullfoss, which is something we talked about a long time ago on the podcast, which is an EQ that is basically artificial intelligence. You change a couple of sliders and then you press go and everything just sounds good. And it's really interesting, and I've been trying to read up on it, and it's making my brain hurt trying to figure out how. And yeah, so Gullfoss I'm going to talk about on camera. I'm going to do the start of this 5150 versus 6505 video. And so that's not going to take long. See if I can do a quick demo of the JCM800 Studio. There's so much. I've got a list written down of things I have to do, and it's a big list. Oh, I need to take this pod mic into the studio with me and do a quick piece to camera for that as well. So, yeah.
Howard Benson did Hello Rockview.
I was going to tell you that before, yeah.
Oh my god.
And I also found out that on Hello Rockview, Roger played all the guitar on that album.
I did not realise that. I know I said the whole like My Chemical Romance thing, but
yeah, look through his credits. I mean,
I've got it up here.
Yeah, from what me and Liam listened to when we were younger, I listened to a lot of Howard Benson stuff. Liam practically lived it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Kelly Clarkson bit, but
yeah.
Oh yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah, you just read through that period from about 98 to about 2005, and you just go, hang on a minute.
It's just that album was so good.
Yeah.
So good. I'm going to listen to that in like 10 minutes.
Question from the chat. Do you guys own a nose flute and a kazoo? I don't think I've got a nose flute, but I have got a kazoo.
You've got a kazoo, haven't you? Yeah.
Definitely. I've got a box of things that generally entertain drummers. I'll stick them in another room. So I've got tambourines, I've got kazoos, I've got like a long tube that you spin around and it goes woo. I've got a thing called percusso that's kind of like a tambourine but with a kind of a clave in the middle, so it goes, so you can do two rhythms with one hand, which can really mess up your brain if you do something else with your other hand and try and speak at the same time. Suddenly your eyes go funny like a chameleon. You suddenly, your brain just goes, nope, can't do that.
If anyone would like to send us a nose flute, you're more than welcome to.
Yes. Send them to PO Box 1, Hot Pole Studios, England. Yes. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's been an intensely busy week. So I had to drive to a place called Prescott earlier in the week to pick up the JCM800, which sadly did mean that I had to trade it for the PV XXX and the PV Windsor, which I was hoping to hang on to for a little longer, but he wanted that as part of the deal, so I just said, yeah, go on then. And we tried out the PV Windsor at this guy's house, and he's a proper like shred metal, and the PV Windsor is kind of like a Marshall, but less like face-meltingly bright, which is definitely what I wanted the Marshall for. But we'd spent a whole 10 seconds tuning it, and then went, yes. And in my head, I'm going, damn, I want this back. But yeah, no, it worked very, very well, which surprised me. We were both looking at each other going, that's a lot of gain coming out of this thing. Yeah. But yeah, I took 2 amps that I could barely lift, and now I've got one that made me make the less strenuous noise. So yes, my lower back thanks you. And yeah, it means that I'll be able to do JCM800 stuff in the studio with the master volume on 10 and not necessarily die. Because a proper 100-watt JCM800 on full, you can fill a stadium with that. But with the volume on full, that's how you get that Marshall sound. That's how you get that like Guns N' Roses Slash kind of sound. So yeah, with the 20-watt version, it'll be like, ooh, that's loud, rather than I'm dying, rather than peeling myself off the back wall like out of Back to the Future. Yeah. Oh, if I get time this week as well, I've got 2 new Celestian speakers to try out. I've actually got the Zilla Fat Boy face down in the studio right now, which is for me to take out the speakers. But I remembered that I'd brought my... where is it? There we go. I had brought my soldering iron home because I'm that kind of nerd. So I'll be taking my soldering iron back to the studio tomorrow and desoldering a couple of speakers to put the new Alnico Ruby and Copperback Neo 250 into that cabinet for a review video and a bit of a demo. Okay. Because yeah, they're going to be cool.
Like it?
Yes. So yeah, there's lots of little 5-minute jobs that I need to do tomorrow. I've got 4 power amps open in the live room right now that were full of contact cleaner earlier in the week. So now the smell's gone, and I can probably turn them on and test them now without something going bang. Yeah, so I've been putting a PA system together recently with lots of nice QSC amps, but I got them at an absolute bargain from a friend of ours, Neil. And they were in a bit of a state. I mean, you turn the volumes on all of them and they went... which is not a sound that the amps should make.
Not really.
No, but I've got a couple of cans of this cleaner stuff that just does what it says. But when you spray lots and lots and lots of it, then you end up very dizzy and very giggly. So you need it all to evaporate so that you can do the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Surprised we've not had such an active chat this evening compared to last week. Huh. Just make sure that we are... yeah, we're definitely public and live. Bizarre.
People are just more chilled.
Yeah.
More chilled.
We did have some very chatty chat people last week. I mean, chatty's good. I mean, we're aiming to get the podcast to the point where we literally can't follow it and have to turn it to slow mode. But a man can dream. As it stands, I feel like I'm in slow mode. So...
yeah, I'm exhausted, in honesty. I'm not quite here tonight.
Yes, me neither. But we are here in body, if not in spirit.
We will be here every Thursday at 8 PM, no matter what, rain or shine, or at least one of us will be.
Yes. Probably rain. It has been rain for the past 17 Thursdays. Yes. So we will bid you all adieu and see you all at the prescribed hour on the prescribed day.
5 more people have just joined.
Really?
Yeah. They can rewind if we go offline and watch them from the beginning.
That is ridiculous. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. One last chance before we go. If you've got any tech questions, get them in right now because we're about to go. And if you've not already hit the like button, please do, because it really helps propagate the show and helps more people see it. I like to use big words like propagate. It makes me sound clever. Yes, it really does help, because as I've learned recently, the great algorithm goes off things like viewer interaction, which is like likes and dislikes, actually. As long as you've not got an unreasonable like to dislike ratio, there's no bad thing having a couple of dislikes. I mean, if it's
it's all interaction at the end of the day.
Yeah, if it's all dislikes and no likes, I think then the algorithm does kind of pick up on that. But generally speaking, yeah, click one of those two buttons, yes or no, and it does annoy me sometimes that pretty much every video we put out, somebody hits dislike on it.
It's always me, right? I hate everything you do, Adam.
You hate everything I am. Everything I will ever be. Well, surely that's the power of friendship.
I made it to Ancient 1 in Dota this week.
I mean, you are in your mid-30s.
I know, right?
Congratulations, I guess.
Yeah. Must be in like the top X%.
Right. Awesome.
I don't know what the X is, but yeah. Over the bell curve, at least.
Yes, nobody likes to be in a bell curve.
No.
Yes. Right, well, no more questions, Your Honour. So...
No. Until next week.
Until next week. Let's play the outro music that I want to update the snare on. Do a new mix of that later in the week, maybe, and make a video about it. Goodbye!